Lightning struck the modern barn on the Lloyd Glynn farm near here shortly after midnight, July 21st. By dawn, the barn was a total loss.
If there was one long ring on the telephone, that was an emergency somewhere in Coulterville. And one of the real emergencies was when Glenn's barn burned. And I remember looking out the upstairs window of the farmhouse. My brother and I were home alone. Just remember the explosion in the air that I could see as I looked out that upstairs window to the west.
Memories are of the neighbors all getting together and trying to save most of the cattle, and there was very few cattle lost. Before the fire trucks got there, I got up on the shed and with a hose and kept sprinkling water down the roof, and every once in a while I'd take and spray my face with it because it was getting pretty hot. And you know, when I came down from the roof, my hair and eyebrows and eyelashes were all burnt off from the heat.
Well, this article was in the Green Bay Press-Gazette, and it describes the day that neighbors got together and rebuilt the Glynn barn. Now, on the back of the article, there was an ad for a 1951 Kaiser. So that sort of tells us about when the barn burned and when it was rebuilt. The catastrophe was almost too much for Mr. and Mrs. Glynn and their son Don, who operate the farm. The encouragement of neighbors and friends influenced the decision to rebuild. Without that encouragement, I would have never rebuilt, said Glynn. Tuesday morning, those same neighbors and friends from miles around converged on the Glynn farm in droves. Everyone brought his hammer. Many brought tools of other descriptions. They moved in like a swarm of locusts. The day was perfect. At 9 o'clock, they went to work building the barn. At 9:40 a.m., when the first picture was snapped, the framework ribs were almost completely in place. At that time, neighbor women were beginning to come. They were coming to help Mrs. Glynn feed that happy crew whose hammers were pounding with a rhythm that was a veritable music to the ears. A happier group would be hard to find. They were helping friends get back into business. And 2,700 bales of top-notch hay are in rented quarters waiting to go into that barn. It was cut, raked, and baled by those same neighbors from their second crop to replace the burned, full-to-the-roof Glynn barn. It's still a wonderful world if you look in the right places, say the Glyns. The 36 by 130 foot structure was up and closed in before 4 o'clock when the 76-man crew came down for lunch before going home to their chores. They worked under the supervision of the Marquardt Brothers and Nicholas and Son construction companies. Officials of both companies said that the crew was the best and most willing to scale the heights that they had ever worked with. A big item in the construction of the barn was the 6,000 feet of 6x6 ceiling joists to support the mow floor. Henry Doyle, a neighbor, donated sufficient standing oak, ash, and elm timber to meet the requirement, and again, the neighbors got together, cut the trees, and sawed the timber. 19 women helped Mrs. Glynn feed the hungry men. They fed them at noon in the Coulterville Hall and supper on the lawn.
It was, a time when that, was a sad time. But then the neighbors all got together and helped them rebuild a new barn, and those were just, great days growing up because everybody helped everybody else.
And when I read it, you're bringing back my emotion now. It really touched me, and it really shows the true spirit of Coulterville and what Coulterville is about.